over the next 3 sessions. And just a little bit of housekeeping, I suppose, about today and about the sessions. Really, we want to try and promote as much collaboration as possible, and the chat window is really important for that. And there'll be quite a lot of opportunity tonight to actually to contribute, to put some ideas in there. And what I want to do is I want to really promote the idea that I'm not here. I'm not going to be the only person you will learn from tonight. I want you to learn from each other. I want you to share your own experiences, and to at the end potentially swap email addresses and contact each other, because hopefully you are all in the same position. You are all looking to move forward, and it's also quite nice that we're from different areas of the country, so you don't necessarily feel that you have to be giving away anything about your own school or your own kind of role, and hopefully you will be able to feel that you can collaborate with people and use this as a group learning experience, and learn from each other and take advice from each other as we go along over the next few weeks and months. So I would suggest you grab a pen and some paper if you haven't already done that. There'll be lots of things to take notes from tonight, and it's to write little bits about ideas down. I'll be giving you things to go away and look at, to research, to read, to think about, questions to answer, and tasks to do over the next few days and weeks. Ask any questions that you want, any questions that you have, put in the chat box at the bottom, and I will get to them as soon as I can when we kind of take chance or take a second to draw breath. Help each other, like I've said, and then hopefully if we can network with each other after the session and over the next few weeks and months, and that would be great. And I think you will get a lot more out of it, feeling that you are a group of learners together, rather than just doing this on your own. So that's how I want it to work. Feel free to ask anything along the way, and my details, I will put my contact details on the end, and you're more than welcome to speak to me and contact me at any point via a multitude of different mediums if you want any advice throughout the next coming weeks or months. So that's how it's all going to work. Right then, this afternoon then, the aims and objectives of this specific session is really to develop the understanding of senior leadership. And just to give you my own background, I've been in education for about 15 years now. I have come up through the pastoral route. I was an assistant head of year, then to a head of year, then assistant head teacher in charge of behaviour and safety. Then I moved sideways at the same school to raising achievement, then to teaching and learning, and I've now been a deputy head teacher since Easter, in charge of teaching and learning and behaviour and safety. So that is my kind of background and my my route up to and into senior leadership. So we'll look at that and develop an understanding from my experience and from my point of view and from the way I see it. We'll have a real sharp focus on school improvement, because that's really what it's about. It's about school improvement, and when we're in senior leadership, our focus has to be on how we are improving the school, how we're moving things forward, and with now the fact that everything is targeted very, very sharply focused now in education on targets and improvements, and anyone who's been in education for longer than a few weeks will know that. So we'll be looking very sharply on how we can actually improve our current skills, or the skill that we're going to be working in. I want it to be a catalyst for thinking and further research. So I want to give you a lot of ideas to think about tonight, and for you to go away and to actually do some of your own independent research into some of the things we've been talking about. It's an opportunity for you to reflect on your own readiness, and hopefully this will give you an opportunity to think, well, am I ready now, or are there any gaps in my knowledge, or what do I need to do to plug those gaps, or where can I go to get this information that I need, and then hopefully to outline the next steps for us to move forward. So that's basically what how we're going to do, or what we're going to do, and how we're going to do it over the course of tonight and the next 2 sessions. Right, I mentioned what was going to happen tonight, and just I suppose a visual of how we're going to take it through. To start with an introduction to leadership, but it's all connected and linked, and hopefully as we go through, we will see this. And like I say, I'd like you to use as much as you can of your own personal experience to be able to help out with, and there'll be lots of questions and time for you to be to reflect on your own. Not everything I'm going to ask you I want you to share with the group. There may be some things where I ask you just to kind of to write down, to brainstorm, and for your own personal thinking. Other things I'll ask to share with the group, but hopefully they'll all be linked as we go through the evening. So the first thing, let's dive straight into leadership versus management, and this is something irrespective of whether we're in education or whether we're in business, crops up from all the time, and it's also a typical interview question when you're going for a senior leadership position that you may be asked, what is the difference between leadership and management? And you then may be asked, well, how much of each do you do? And I think that's really interesting just to start from this point, really, in terms of, what do you do throughout the day? Do you believe you are a leader, or do you believe you are a manager? And I'm not going to give you any more indication of that at the moment. I just want you to think about, what do you think you do? What do you think your role encompasses at the moment? And do you actually lead, or do you manage? And we'll look on the next slide in a second. We're going to look at the difference between those and some examples. But just initially, just for you to sketch down a little brainstorming activity. Do you think you lead, or do you think you manage, or do you not know? So just take 30 seconds or so to maybe look at your role and where you lead or where you manage, or where you think you lead and where you think you manage. And then we're going to pick this up in about 30 seconds or so and look at some examples of specifically the things that we do in our roles and what might be a leading activity and what might be a management activity. So I'll give you 30 seconds or so to have a stab at that in front of you, and then we'll move on once we've done that. All right, let's move it forward then. The last bullet point talks about shifting mindsets. Now I'm going to come back to that once we've looked at actually whether we are leaders or managers. So this slide here is something that I've taken from some research that looks at the different types of roles that a manager does compared to a leader. And I just want you to look at that and just take a look at some of the activities that you do. And are you a manager or are you a leader? If we're looking at decision making, do you make decisions, or do you facilitate decisions and enable people to make their decisions? Looking down, are you reactive or are you proactive? Do you minimize risks or do you take risks, etc., etc. Have a look down there and see where you think you fit. And it'd be nice for you to drop it in the chat box. I know a lot of people put their roles at the start, but I think some people came a little bit late. If you can just drop it in the chat box, just what your role is in one or two words. So, curriculum leader, head of year, whatever it is, and whether you feel that your role is a managerial role or a leadership role. So just your role and whether you feel you are a manager or a leader at the moment. It'll be interesting to see, as middle managers or middle leaders, whatever you're called in your school, and that might, I suppose, give a hint towards it. What are you expected to be in your school? So just drop us in the chat box, and once you've dropped them in, let's have a look at what people are putting in, and it'll be interesting to see what roles and what we believe we are or we should be doing. So I'll give you 30 seconds or so to just drop them in the chat box. So very briefly, just your role and what you believe you are, a manager or a leader. So let's got some coming in. So we've got Kevin, this is a leader. Susan is a bit of both. We've got enjoy the role of leader sometimes. Yeah, constraint at being a manager, absolutely. Majority of a manager. Drop in and out of being a manager and a leader. Bit of both.